Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a really fascinating look at the Swiss pharmaceutical and diagnostics giant Roche Holding AG. Today, we're going to decode what is honestly a pretty complex corporate narrative. It's like a giant puzzle. On one side, you've got this massive, almost unprecedented future potential that's completely wrapped up in groundbreaking science. But then, on the flip side, you have the gritty, day-to-day operational reality of running a global business in a really turbulent economy. So how do you weigh blockbuster drug pipelines against major currency headwinds? Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out together.
Here's our quick roadmap for the Explainer. We're going to cover the financial picture, the pipeline powerhouse, AI and strategic innovation, navigating industry headwinds, and finally the road ahead. Let's jump in.
Okay, so let's start with a massive hook from August 2026. Morgan Stanley didn't just casually upgrade Roche's stock. They actually replaced AstraZeneca with Roche as their absolutely top pharmaceutical pick, bumping their price target up to 410 Swiss francs. I mean, that is a massive Wall Street vote of confidence. It's a very clear signal from top analysts that they think Roche's next major growth story isn't just a hypothetical, it's gaining serious momentum right now.
Section 1, the financial picture. To really get why Wall Street is buzzing, we first have to establish Roche's baseline from the first half of 2026. And there's this wild optical illusion happening here in their international finance. If you simply glance at Roche's reported group sales, it totally looks like a 2% decline. But wait, that's almost entirely due to a huge appreciation of the Swiss franc. When you actually measure those exact same sales in US dollars, it's an 8% growth. That's roughly $37.34 billion. So beneath the surface, the core business is expanding beautifully across both pharmaceuticals and diagnostics, even with all that currency chaos dragging down the headline numbers.
This breakdown really brilliantly illustrates the underlying strength we're talking about. Look at the constant exchange rates for the first half of 2026. Sales grew by 6%, but the real standout metric? Core operating profit. That shot up by 10%, hitting 11.9 billion francs. So the key takeaway here is that their operating profit is actually growing significantly faster than their sales. That means margins are expanding. It's solid proof that the business is getting leaner and more efficient, which is exactly why management was so confident confirming their full-year 2026 outlook.
Section 2, the pipeline powerhouse.
That financial efficiency is exactly what's funding the absolute heart of the bull case for Roche right now, their massive late-stage drug pipeline. Let's unpack this science a bit. A huge focal point is a drug called Giredestrant. This is a SERD, or a selective estrogen receptor degrader. Basically, it's an investigational oral therapy that isn't just designed to block estrogen receptors, but to actively degrade them. Why is that absolutely crucial? Well, estrogen receptors are what fuel the growth of ER-positive breast cancer. So by degrading them, you're literally attacking the engine of the disease itself. And the science is paying off 30%. That is a massive number in this field. In their Phase 3 LEAD-ERA study, Giredestrant reduced the risk of invasive disease recurrence or death by 30% compared to standard of care endocrine therapy. We are talking about real, tangible human impact here. At the 3-year mark, 92.4% of patients taking this drug were alive and completely free of invasive disease. You really can't overstate the high stakes we're looking at. Roche's own chief medical officer, Dr. Levi Garraway, pointed out that this is the first major advance of its kind in decades. To put that into perspective, globally, about 2.3 million people are diagnosed with breast cancer every single year. Roughly 70% of those cases are ER-positive. So this drug? It has the potential to fundamentally rewrite the treatment playbook for millions of people worldwide. It's a real game changer.
Okay, let's switch gears to another huge pipeline highlight. Treating neurological diseases like Alzheimer's has always had one incredibly frustrating hurdle: just getting the medicine into the actual brain. The body's blood-brain barrier acts like an incredibly strict bouncer, naturally blocking most drugs. Well, Roche developed this proprietary technology called the Brain Shuttle platform. It's specifically engineered to bypass that bouncer and transport therapies directly across the barrier.
And they're currently using this Brain Shuttle platform for an investigational Alzheimer's therapy called Trontinemab. The data they presented at the 2026 Alzheimer's Association conference was, frankly, staggering. In patients given the higher dose, a massive 92% fell below the amyloid positivity threshold at just 28 weeks. It's so promising that Roche completely went for it and unveiled Preventron. That's a Phase 3 trial investigating the drug in cognitively unimpaired people who are at high risk of developing symptomatic Alzheimer's.
Section 3, AI and strategic innovation.
So Roche clearly isn't just relying on old-school laboratory methods. They're aggressively bringing artificial intelligence into the fold. Back in August of 2026, they hit a huge milestone. Through a partnership with Recursion Pharmaceuticals, they officially advanced their very first AI-derived drug target for a neurodegenerative disease. This target was found entirely by AI analyzing massive, complex datasets, and now it's an actual laboratory validation. It's the ultimate test to see if AI can genuinely invent new medicines from scratch. And get this is just the first of up to 40 potential programs they're working on together.
And they aren't just dipping their toes in, they're putting serious capital behind this digital transition. In May 2026, Roche struck a deal to acquire PathAI, a heavy hitter in AI-powered technology, for $750 million upfront, plus up to $300 million in potential milestone payments. This whole operation is going to roll straight into Roche Diagnostics. It's basically a billion-dollar bet that digital pathology and AI are going to absolutely revolutionize precision cancer diagnosis, letting doctors offer hyper-tailored treatment plans.
They're also moving way past traditional animal models. We're talking about next-generation human model systems, things like complex organoids and organ-on-a-chip technology. I know, it sounds like total science fiction, right? But it's a 1.4 billion franc reality. They built the new Institute of Human Biology in Basel specifically to utilize this tech and radically accelerate how fast they can discover new drugs.
Section 4. Navigating industry headwinds. Now, we've got to pull back to reality for a second. We've looked at all this massive upside, but we definitely need to explore the bear case too. Because right now, Roche is dealing with some very gritty operational friction. First, their blockbuster eye drug Vabysmo missed second quarter expectations by 7.1%, caught up in weaker U.S. demand and some really fierce competition. Second, that incredibly strong Swiss franc we talked about, it's expected to drag down their full-year sales by a painful 4%. And third, strict healthcare pricing reforms over in China caused their diagnostics revenue in that specific market to just plummet by 15% in the first half of the year. So, definitely not all sunshine.
So how is management actually fighting all these headwinds? Well, with unbelievably strict cost controls. They're tightening the belt everywhere they can. For instance, in March 2026, they literally banned all consulting work with the Big Four accounting firms unless it gets prior direct approval from the CFO. I mean, that is massive corporate belt tightening. But you know what? It's actually working. Despite seeing an 8% volume growth in the first half of the year, they somehow managed to keep their cost of sales growth to just 5%. And even more incredibly, they kept R&D spending growth down to a mere 1%.
Section 5. The road ahead. So, we've got the huge bull upside of the pipeline in AI directly clashing with the bear friction of currency and market headwinds. Let's synthesize all of this by looking at what's coming next. Think of this timeline as a countdown. In the second half of the year, that massive PathAI acquisition is expected to close. But the real date that everyone on Wall Street has circled in red ink is November 30th, 2026. That is the FDA's decision date for Giredestrant. Morgan Stanley is projecting this drug could generate roughly 660 million francs in its first year alone if it gets the green light. And right on its heels is another FDA ruling in December about using it in a combination therapy.
Which brings us to the ultimate question for you. When you sit back and weigh the massive potential of the CRD pipeline, those incredible breakthroughs with the Brain Shuttle platform, and all these aggressive AI acquisitions, against the harsh reality of currency drags and missed sales expectations, where do you actually land? Is Roche just an aging giant fighting an uphill battle against industry headwinds? Or, as Morgan Stanley seems to think, is their next truly great growth story just beginning? November 30th is going to give us our first major clue. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep learning.